Today, Dr. Todd Stong will discuss the condition of Lake Chapala and the progress of his many projects in the lakeside community, as well as the urgency to identify the weak sections of the pipeline from the lake that supplies 3 million people in Guadalajara. For the last 12 years, Dr. Stong has been serving the infrastructure needs of 42 villages about the lake and the testing of the lake. He has spent the past 17 years in Africa, Asia, and Latin America as a volunteer engineer with a focus on rural water supply after a total of nearly 40 years as a civil engineer. He spent half in construction overseas and half in directing research laboratories and programs in the U.S. Let us welcome Dr. Todd Stong. Yes.
I'm very happy, of course, to be here today. I'll turn on the mic first, right? Okay. 1, 2, 3, can you hear me?
There you go.
1, 2, 3. Okay, yeah. I usually am loud enough that, for 30 years in the Army, you get to be loud, right? But I said also once before, when I graduated from high school, I was voted the quietest person in the high school class. So I changed a lot then. I thought most appropriate, I was accused recently of obtaining this suit from a Nigerian general. Because I usually come here in my work jumpsuits, and so I decided to get one a little fancier for this crowd and all that. And but the good thing about it, like all jumpsuits, one zip and you're out. That's why I look at it. But anyway, there's a lot of things to talk about, and I don't really know what your interest is, so I've gone around a little bit and talked to a couple people for questions. And I decided today that what I was going to do was to open up with 13 statements. Now, these statements might be taken as politically incorrect. These statements might not agree with everybody else's opinion, okay? Every statement I'm going to make deserves a page of explanation. So I only have about 30 minutes here to talk, and I can talk for 3 hours probably, okay? So let me start off with these points, and it'll take about 5 minutes, and then I'll go into a couple other things. Oh, hey, there was a great guy here who gave me some candy here. I like candy. I like chocolate especially, if you want to be nice to me. Thank you very much. At this time, I'm physically every day working on a wastewater treatment system in the village of Chilco. It's on the east side of Chapala, about 15 minutes. 600 people. It's an all biological system. No chemicals, no electricity, all by gravity to serve the treatment of waste for 600 people. The most wonderful thing about this is the village asked for this system. They didn't want their wastewater to go into the lake, and that's quite good. And so a couple weeks ago, the president of Ponce de Leon, which is a county to the east of here, he came to me and asked me to come and build the plant, okay, or build the system. And so that's where I am already today. And if you want to see a real project, I should have a bulldozer coming in Monday. We've got to move about 1,100 tons of soil to create ponds, and we're right now putting down about 10,000 bricks and about 500 foot of pipe. And so anyway, there's a nice system going in there. If you want to see a project, good. In planning and study right now are projects in 2 communities. One's an eco village for irrigation dams. There's collecting water from the mountains to irrigate crops for that village. Another project is in the planning to bring more water to the Huichol people, the indigenous group of people. They're about 10 hours north of here. And I have about 3 ideas for them, for alternate ways for them to make money. And there's things they can do in that remote location that they can turn into cash besides their crafts. We finished up with our aquaculture project in the lake. We've finished 2 years there, and right now the 6 cages we have are under the command and control of 6 individual persons who have shown by their exemplary performance that they are ready to do aquaculture in the lake. So at this point in time, we're looking at the new government and waiting to see direction from the new government as to what they might do with the aquaculture experience to expand it into the lake. I mean, I have a lot of enthusiasm for this topic, especially since the lake, as you know, is most basically devoid of fish. All right. In the last 20 years, the fish have gone from up here down to here, going from about 200 pounds or so of fish per day per fisherman down to about 10. And so the fish in the lake, the future of the fish in the lake is zero, without significant action. And so anyway, I see aquaculture as a possibility. And so, in my optimistic view, if the government replicates, duplicates, what we have been able to show in the way of building cages, anchoring the cages to the lake bed, withstanding the waves and the currents, feeding the fish, medicating the fish, if they use that knowledge, I think we ought to be able to create up to 8,000 jobs on the lake, which would be enormous, okay? And there's, of course, much more potential across Mexico. So anyway, that's what's going on right now. If you're interested in any of those things, let me know. If I'm not on your email list or you're not on my email list, give me your email and I will begin to pollute your mind with lots of things. Okay, 13 statements. I'm going to read them because it might be quicker. And maybe I should put on glasses. But again, each one of these could be coated with honey and chocolate, and then they would become mush. So I'll read them as, okay. The good news is that some very needful changes at the national level are taking place in Mexico because of a coalition of two of its three major parties. So there's a very hopeful feeling right now, I think, in the country with the possibility of progress in a number of good areas in Mexico, and that's great. Number two, however, it is my view that needful specific changes to the infrastructure in Mexico at the state and county level will be delayed due to the unintentional massive loss of institutional memory as both the great and the not so great have been swept out of office with last year's change of party rules. It will take time for appeals to percolate to the top. In Mexico, all the control, all the money is at the top, okay? And so it has to come on down to the state, and down to the county, down to the village. And so you really don't get money until the top believes it's needed, and the top is a few miles away. Number three, the lake level controlled for over 30 years by political will, not rain, more so than actual rainfall in the Lumber River Basin, home to 20 million people, will remain at less than 50% full indefinitely. The challenge of the aging single pipeline from the lake to Guadalajara that provides water to near 3 million people will not be addressed until one or more of these deteriorating 7,000 sections of pipe burst and the city goes into a panic mode for 15 to 30 days. That means when 1 million houses and businesses are emptied out and there aren't enough police to take care of them, and those 3 million people will be coming here to the Lake Chapala Society for water. The next one, the excessive use of inefficient irrigation that consumes 80% of the water of the Lumber River, which terminates at Lake Chapala, so as to produce less than 5% of the GNP in the basin, and there's a terrible waste of water, which that's a little bit about money, will not see correction until Jalisco State, this state here, in behalf of Guadalajara, takes a stand with the Federal Water Commission. Again, we're at the end of the lake, the 5 states, until the governor, Aristotelies, gets up, and I've tried to talk to him for a year, and if anybody can help me reach him, I would appreciate that. That's my number one need, is I have developed a 55-page slide presentation with a lot of details for him, and when I sent it to him, it got sent to his water people, who of course will tell him their story, and so I need to beat that. Okay. Lake Chapala will remain an excellent site for recreation as its waters will continue to test at very low levels of bacteria due to its possessing excellent levels of dissolved oxygen from constant winds upon a very shallow water depth. The lake is many times 90% saturated with oxygen. Anything that falls in that lake that's organic is consumed very rapidly. I mean, you would not expect that if the lake was deeper. This would be a dead lake if it was deep. The recovery of the loss of 80 to 90% of the fish in the lake in the last 20 years will not happen as long as the lake level does not stay steady. The secret to fish is little fish. And the little fish, the secret is to survive, to become big fish. Little fish begin life on the edge of a lake in the grass. And if you move the lake level down, 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 you end up time after time after time with no grass. And so the eggs go into the sand and the mud, and the other fish eat them up. And so 80% of the loss of the fish the last 20 years is due to the government. The other 20% is due to the fishermen in a panic mode, taking whatever size fish they could, to the point now where there are no longer any fish eggs, okay? Lakeshore development, like beaches, marinas, man-made wetlands perhaps, will remain stagnant until changes are made to allow public use of the federal zone. The federal zone is basically wherever the water has ever touched in the past, basically. In the case of the lake, it's up to the highest level of the lake, and another few meters, I think it's 10 meters beyond that. That's called federal land. And you legally cannot build on it, you cannot do anything on it, and there's a need to allow things that are good for the public, like marinas and beaches and maybe wetlands to help with the waste to be done there, but that all resides at Conagua, the Water Commission in Mexico City. And so, although that's a nice law, it needs to be understood how it's applied. And here, the greatest lake in Mexico, the biggest lake in Mexico, should have an enormous amount of recreation on it. It doesn't have on it because you can't build facilities next to it. You know, as soon as you, I mean, there's some places you have to walk 500 foot to the water. And that 500-foot walk is on federal land. So that has to be reconsidered. The potential for the lake to provide a safe source of raw water to Guadalajara for purification will continue as long as the powers to release water from the 500 dams in the Lumber River Basin, as long as there's powers to do that, to keep the lake at a minimum of 30% full. And that's a number that I come up with, and based on my 12 years here, it's a little bit difficult because data is limited. Information on the water test for the villages around here is not public information. Information on lake, in many cases, is not public information. And trying to understand, in other words, what we talked before, if I have a glass of water and I put it in a teaspoon of salt, it's salty. If I let 80% of the water evaporate out, it will really be salty. And so that's what happens to the lake. We get down to about 30%, and then things are in the water that are not good or cannot be taken out by water purification processes like mercury and cadmium and arsenic and things like that. It will not be possible for Guadalajara to purify that water. But at the same time, they probably won't tell the people. Okay, the lake right now is 42% full. The water is down 4.2 meters, about 14 feet, and the lake has not been full in 33 years, okay, 33 years. So it's very much, my hope we get the lake full, but it takes political will to do that. In the meantime, I'd be happy if the lake was partially full and kept at that level so the fish then could grow. In other words, if I was to vote for something today, it would be a lake that is 80% full, okay, and keep it at 80%, because it is possible, with adjustment at any day, any hour of the day, to send water down from the 500 dams here, if political powers say to do so. And I could keep the lake within an inch every day if I had that power. As to some local things that are going on here, the excessive levels of arsenic in 5 of the 8 wells in Chapala is such that until the federal government does something on this, there will not be any change in that. The only solution that I know of for water in Chapala is to open up discussion on bringing water from the lake, just like we do for Guadalajara, purify it in a simple way, and provide Chapala City with water from the lake. and that will overcome the problem, because arsenic is in the rock there, and it comes out because the water in Chapala is thermal, it's hot. If you go down to San Pedro Itzicon, the water is boiling in the lake. Women are washing their clothes, in hot, warm, and lukewarm water as they back away from the hot water, okay? But that water coming out just takes more and more minerals out of the volcanic rock here. And Mexico is the number 3 exporter of arsenic in the world. So in the case of San Pedro Itzicon, I would like to do the same thing there, provide water for that village of 5,000 with water from the lake through a simple process. Their problem is lead. But both lead and arsenic are things that affect the nervous system, particularly children. And that's why it's of concern to me. The area of the Riberas, anybody that lives in Riberas knows that we have problems there with wastewater, with sewage. There are no sewers in Riberas, and there's no potential on the horizon with the change of government for previously developed plans by the other government to go ahead and put sewers in Riberas or put a treatment plant. My most recent talk with the chief of Ciapa, water people in Chapala, is that they would like to now put in sewers and pump the wastewater into Chapala and process it there. On the other side of the coin, the Riberas is such that most of the land in Riberas, you cannot put a septic tank in because everything that goes down the ground will come back up again. Because there's a lot of clay there, and it will not percolate down into the ground. So Riberas will continue to be a problem, and you're so advised to be careful about that. Excellent water quality will remain so in San Antonio to Ajijic. This town is the best town in the whole lake for water quality and water supply. And San Antonio deserves credit too, because they're in the same aquifer, you might say. There's also very good water in Santa Cruz de la Soledad and San Nicolas, okay? They have abundant water and very good supply. There's some chairs over here. You can run on by.
Happy Sunday.
Okay. I think that Ajijic may be the first town on the lake to make the transition from intermittent gravity flow from a tank on the hill, which is the normal way villages get water. The water guy pumps water for 3 hours up the hill to the tank. He runs up the hill on his burro. He opens up the valve, the water runs down the hill, and whoever gets it, okay? And then in the afternoon, he pumps water up the hill, the tank, and he gets on his burro, and turns the valve and runs down the hill again, okay? All right? We're going to transition in Ajijic from that kind of system, because with that system, you don't know when water's coming, so you all have a tank in the ground called the aljibe, okay? And you get the water maybe on Wednesday that you need to keep until Friday because no more water came. So I think that here in Ajijic, they're going to be pumping more and more the water directly from the wells into the pipeline. In other words, it's pressurized water, and this will be the first village, I think, with 24-hour water supply, water pressure, which will be quite good. Anyway, those are my 13 controversial statements, okay? And if you have an ill feeling about them, we'll talk about it or email me, okay? And I'll send you a page or 5 pages or whatever it takes. But I believe in that. One of my blessings is that, contrary to most of you, I'm inclined to knock on a lot of doors, okay? And so I have good contacts with the presidents, 3 times past now, in 6 counties around the lake. I have good contacts at the state level and several federal agencies. Okay. Unfortunately, a lot of my contacts are now in the cemetery because of the change in party. Okay. And so my greatest desire right now, besides talking to Governor Anastopoulos, is to have somebody help link me up with a newspaper in Guadalajara. I haven't been able to, with my language impediment, I haven't been able to get to a journalist or reporter in one of the Guadalajara papers, because I have articles already written that would like to address in a very logical way with real numbers what I'm talking about that's important for the people in Guadalajara and the state to know. Okay. I'd like to talk a little bit about Mexico's future, as I see it, okay? I mean, each of you has an idea what the future might be, but I'm going to give you my perspective. And then again, I'm happy to have you email me. I love to hear from you. And I do get love letters and sometimes hate letters. You know. I have people that want to put me out of the country, you know. Okay. I think for Mexico, I'm overall very, very optimistic about the future of this country, okay? Particularly so when I work with, meet with, talk with people in the 20 and 30-year age group. When I see these people, they're people that are getting education. They're people that are going to university. They're people sometimes with an engineering background like myself, okay? Whereas my older friends, you know, in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s are sort of, you know, this is the way it's been for 500 years, you know, we'll survive, we'll get along. And there's a few who say, you know, someday I'll get the job and I'll get the stamp, you know, and it'll be my chance to get rich. You know, and so I see the real future of Mexico through the eyes of these young people who are deeply into the internet. They're deeply curious. They deeply understand and see every day how things can be done in other ways, how things can be improved in this country. And so I think that's going to be the force for the good here. In this country here, when we look at 190 nations in the world, Mexico is 14th out of 190 for GNP, for money, for economy, okay? And that's really wonderful, okay? I mean, up north we wouldn't even think about that. But the money does not get spread around very well. Right? I mean, there are places in Mexico where the people live like they were in West Africa, right? At that level. When I worked in Africa on water systems, I mean, most of the people I work with make $1 a day, right? And we have some people here in Mexico who are like that because of the ill distribution of the wealth in the country. When I think about a future, I think about two things. You know, if I'm going to run a country, you know, it's pretty optimistic. I want to sort of find out what are the real resources of this country. You know, what do we have? Okay. And number two, I want to find out how can we fit in the world in a competitive way to do something, to market something, to sell something that others can't do. Where do we have the competitive advantage? So I need to look at resources and that. So when I look at where we fit, I think of the fact that in most products today that are manufactured, China is still way out ahead because of the low workforce wage, right? And so it's very difficult to compete. India is close behind it, more on the computer side than in the heavy industry side. So I think we have to carefully, when we look at Mexico, consider, you know, how much future hope we can put in things where we're trying to beat the competition in China or India or Indonesia, Korea, Pakistan, Taiwan, and places like that. We need to think, you know, what do they need that they don't have? Okay? And so the number one thing that I see that they need that they don't have is food. All right. And so what they're doing right now is they're buying up land in Mexico, they're buying up land in Africa to create their food. Right? And so I think one of the greatest futures of Mexico is to get serious about its agriculture. Get serious about what you should grow and what you should not grow to be able to do things. For example, I talk about 80% use of the Lerma River water for irrigation. 64% of the farmers in Mexico grow almost only corn. It's a tradition. It's a religion. But corn is not the best thing to do with scarce water. If I want a ton of wheat, I need maybe 2,000 tons of water to get a ton of wheat. Okay, and that's like corn or soy. The best way to get water is to import wheat. Do you import 1 ton of wheat, or do you import 1 million or 1,000 or 2,000 tons of water? Okay, you follow me? Right? the smart places in the world, they're importing their water in concentrated form in the way of beans and soy and wheat and corn. Okay, they're importing it. The real future of Mexico in that area, I'll read a little statement here, and this is out of the UN on a study. A few words here. In spite of being a staple in the Mexican diet, Mexico's comparative advantage, the comparative advantage of Mexico in agriculture is not corn, but in horticulture, tropical fruits, and vegetables. That's what the future is. I mean, if I can grow a kilo of chili morrón, the green peppers, I sell them for 50 or 60 pesos a kilo. Whereas if I grow a kilo of corn, it's going to be a few pesos. The water, if I can take 4 hectares of land that a small farmer has, and he makes his money off of those 4 hectares, and say you can make the same money with 1 hectare if you grow tomatoes, we save 3/4 of the water right there, like that. Okay, so I think a major future of Mexico is agriculture, but I'll go on to that in a minute. As to the resources in Mexico, the number one resource in Mexico to me has always been the sun. And I think that any problem in this country, you know, when you sit down and you put down, find 10 experts, put them around a table, give them a piece of paper, and say, this is our problem, and we would like to think about a solution. So you've got 10 minutes to write down what you think, and then we're going to talk. But I want you to first think of how you would use the sun as one of the ways to solve this problem. Because that's one of the enormous gifts of this country. A second gift is the climate. And the climate is why we're here. Right? The climate is quite wonderful. A second resource in Mexico is a workforce that operates at 1/4 or 1/3 the wage level that we see up north in the USA or in Canada. And that provides lots of opportunities. We are enormous, 113 million Mexicans, about 315. Good, thank you. Just do 10 minutes. I'm doing pretty well there. Thank you. I can really talk fast because I'm originally from Pennsylvania, but I'll speak like I'm from Colorado or something. So anyway, the sun, the climate, the workforce. Mexico has about 12% arable land, 12% land that you can actually grow on or pasture, okay? And that's in the world average. It's not more than the world average, but it's good. But it has a lot of semi-arid land. And the semi-arid land, I think, is ideal for greenhouses, okay? All right. You had a chance to meet my one daughter today, Melanie. Stand up, Melanie. Yeah. She is the other mother for the 6 engineer boys. You know, when they were all 3 months old, we wheeled them into her room and said, take care of that one. You know? and so she has her own 5 now and 6 grandchildren and all that kind of thing. So anyway, I talk too much about my engineer sons, and I should talk more about my beautiful daughter. Anyway, in working with one of my sons, we work on organic greenhouses, okay, in New Mexico. For land that we buy for $300 an acre, okay? In a 1 acre greenhouse, we have $1 million sales a year. 1 acre greenhouse. 8,000 pounds a week comes out the door from an acre of desert. If you use it, if you work it right, okay? That can be done here in Mexico, in a lot of its semi-arid areas. And they would say that this podium out here is not suitable for agriculture, okay? But I can grow food on here every day. No problem. Okay. What we don't think about so much is the resources of Mexico are the minerals. Mexico is number 6 in the world for oil. Mexico is in the top 10 for 17 minerals in the world. 17 minerals. It has the third largest cement production in the whole world. It has the largest construction company in the world. It has in the north recently discovered that shales that we're finding in the USA, which could be fracked to get out gas and oil, they exist also in the north part of Mexico. There's a tremendous amount of mineral wealth in this country. It began 500 years ago with silver. This country is a very messed up geological plate type, conglomerate. Okay, there are earth plates moving this way and that way, both north and south and east and west, and so there's all kinds of cracked zones in Mexico, earthquake zones. It's in these areas where you come together that the minerals concentrate. All right, when your molten rock cools off, the minerals cool off last, and they fill up the cracks that are left. And that's why 1/3 of all the silver that's ever been mined in the whole world has come from Mexico. There's a lot more out there. I have a feeling in my own self that volcanic rock will find a process to digest volcanic rock into some rather wonderful minerals too. I don't know what it is right now, but I think that volcanic rock will be it. So anyway, if you take these resources and you take the fact that what Mexico might do, I think that the number one future for Mexico is to get serious about agriculture and do it with the right use of water. Right now we have 4% of the people in agriculture in Mexico. In 1970 it used to be 25%. So we're going in the wrong direction. 4% of the economy comes from agriculture, but it uses 18% of the people. Again, an evidence of very inefficient use of people. Mexico is number one in the world in avocados, onions, lemons, sunflower seeds. Again, it's best to import, 1 kilogram of wheat than 2,000 kilograms of water. We need to think about that. Number two, I think, again, these mineral resources I talked about, they need to be further developed in the country. Right now, almost all the minerals are being developed through the assistance and the capital of foreign countries. So I think Mexico needs to get serious about that. Number three, Mexico is a retirement mecca. I mean, you're evidence of it, okay? I can go out dancing almost every night because I don't feel old, If I went north of the Rio Grande, I would feel old, right? I didn't dance until I came here. Because the only rule here is you can dance as long as you don't fall down and embarrass us old people. And that's the way it works. So I was dancing with my daughter last night. And we'll be Monday night too. So, there are people like you. There are millions of people like you. Right now we have maybe 1 million Americans and Canadians in Mexico, okay? 1 million. We have 72 million baby boomers in the USA, okay? And probably 7 million baby boomers in Canada who need to find a place to put their pillow, in the last chapter of life. I'm going to stay here in Mexico for all my life. Right? I'm happy here. If we could encourage, 1% of those 72 million to come to Mexico, it would almost double the amount of foreigners that are here right now. 1%. Okay? Tremendous boost to the economy. The average person like you brings in more money than 600 Mexican tourists every year. All right? And you don't get drunk, you don't throw trash on the ground, and you drive at 30 miles an hour. And you stop at stoplights, right? I think that the tourism, especially international tourism, which brings in more money, is a wonderful opportunity that's not really been developed here in Mexico. So, in summary, I think those futures of Mexico are agriculture, minerals, the retired group, and in particular, assisted living. We have just a little bit of assisted living here. It's almost unknown when you get on the internet, but we have some facilities. But you can get 3 times the care here for half the price. We have 2 million people in the USA right now in assisted living, paying $50,000, $60,000, $80,000 a year. You can do the same thing here for $15,000, $20,000 a year. All right? So assisted living is probably the best business if I want to make some money to go into here right now. But you got to make your link to the north to let people know about that. Okay. Challenges in Mexico with regard to water. How many minutes have I left, Joe? 4 minutes. Okay, good. All right, I got to talk in Pennsylvania mode. All right. All right. When it comes to water, we need a better distribution of water from the wet areas to the dry areas. We're eventually going to have to move water around in this country, okay? We're going to have to do that. We move electricity around, we move oil around, we need to move water around to get to areas that could be. We have a tremendous amount of water if you go south. If you go to Chiapas in South Mexico, water is everywhere, okay? You go north, there's nothing. According to the UN, FAO, what is an acre foot of water? 1 foot deep of water per acre, okay? It's worth $282 to industry, okay? That's how much they'll pay for it. It's worth $200 to cities for people, for domestic use, okay? It's worth $75 to irrigation if you did good irrigation, all right? It's probably worth only about $10 here in Mexico. So you can see, something that's worth $10 in Mexico versus maybe $200 for people. All over the world, water is moving from farm areas into cities because the people and farmers had to become more efficient. Hydroelectric power, the value is $25, and waste disposal is $3, okay? So flushing your toilet is worth $3 an acre foot for the water versus $200 for water for your house or $250 for industry. I mean, sadly, we can't have the whole world have a flush toilet. We don't have enough water. We have to go to composting. Okay, here's another little number. People need 2 to 4 liters of water per day for their health, okay? But it takes 3,000 liters per day to provide the food for that same person. So you have to look at it. I need 3,000 liters of water to make your food today. I need 3 liters of water to make you not thirsty. We have to think about how to do this better. With my organic greenhouses in the U.S., we use 1/3 of the water that you would in the field. We make 20 times as much food per acre as we would in the field. We use 1/5 of fertilizer. That's one example. The concession sales. The way we have a little bit of an administrative kind of conflict, I think. The National Water Commission, their budget, 40% of it is my best guess, depends on money they get from people buying a concession, buying the right to use water. And so this has been going on for about 70 years, and they have sold the rights for water sometimes 2 or 3 times over. And so it brings lots of money to them every year for their budget, but it means that 3 guys have been told they can have the same water, and then they fight over it, okay? And then they use it inefficiently. I think that the government needs to rethink how do you administer water in the country so it does not cause the company administering it to make a profit. Again, the pipeline up to Guadalajara, I think, is critical that it be examined right now. It's 23 years old. At a 20-year level, this kind of pipe has a 1% failure rate, which sounds small, but 1% of 7,000 pieces of pipe is 70 pieces of pipe. Those 70 pieces of pipe are ready to fail. The last head of water in Guadalajara I talked to said, I understand what you're saying, Dr. Stong, but I think I'm going to retire. And so when the new government came in, he got shifted over to the state. And then he said some things that weren't well received by Aristoteles, and then they shipped him to Mexico City. So anyway, there's nothing there. There's no contingency plan. When the pipeline blows up, there's no extra pipe around. There's no prearranged contracts. There's nothing like that going on. I would like to do an examination of the pipeline. There's one company in the world that can do an electromagnetic examination. I run this like basketball through the pipe, and the water will fill up a big water truck, a big 5,000 gallon water truck every 3 seconds. Every 3 seconds to fill up it. Down here at the pipeline at San Nicolas. I would like to run that device through the pipeline for the 45 kilometers from the lake to the city, and it sends out electromagnetic energy, zing, 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 and in the pipe there's wire going around the pipe in the concrete. And where that wire has broken because of corruption, it'll be going ping, 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 pong, pong, and then we know where the broken wires are, okay? Wow. And then we can stake that with the GPS, and we'll know this is where it might blow up next, this is where it might blow up next, and this is where it will blow up next. And then I would put replacement pipe right there, okay? And I would have maybe, rock stockpile there, because when it blows out, and you got that much water coming out of a 6-foot diameter pipe, it's going to wash away a village, okay? But anyway, let me stop here, because our host has got me there. I'll be biased. You take the questions, right?
No, wait, hold your hand and somebody will bring you the mic and
Okay.
you know how to hold the mic.
I just want to say thanks for the speech you gave us about water, Todd, and also the speech Patricia gave it to us about about water. I'm just only going to emphasize something here. Everybody here, we waste a lot of water in several kind of things. The water by itself is not bad. What we added to the water is what makes the water bad for us. Thinking about all the chemicals we put on the water and we drink it. Thinking about all those substances, chemicals man-made, we eat it or drink it or swallow whatever, and we dump it. All those go into the lake. And when we want to purify that water, it's going to take an extra time to get it suitable to drink it for human consumption. So we need to save water any way we can now, because sooner or later the lake is going to run away. Why? Because we cannot supply a lot of water to the city and also supply a lot of water for us. We try to save water.
I can tell you the lake will not go away, because the day it goes away, 3 million people have to leave Guadalajara. Guadalajara will ultimately be the best friend to the lake. And Guadalajara is the power to bring the water back up. We have to understand that. Guadalajara is not the enemy. It may not know it, but it is the best friend to the lake.
Here's a question. Yeah, Doctor, what's the latest on the fish farms? Last time I heard you speak, you were speaking of those, the aquaculture.
Yeah, I mentioned it somewhat in passing here. The aquaculture, I think, has turned out to be a very successful event. When we went into the lake, we had a problem in that most aquaculture was in the ocean, where the waves are sort of like this. And in the lake, we have waves over like this, okay? And so as an engineer, I had to try and figure out what to do with the high frequency loads, wind and waves on the cages, currents from the surface going this way from the wind, currents down 3 meters down going that way, and to have the cages survive in an environment, okay? And that was my biggest thing. That's why I put the cages first out of Mescal Island. But there I have waves that are just over my shoulder, okay, at nighttime, all right? And that's in a calm area. But I think we're at the point now where we can show we can get at least 3 tons per cage per year, maybe 5 tons of fish per year out of the cage.
This is also about the aquaculture. I know you started out farming tilapia, and there was an article in the Guadalajara Reporter a couple of weeks ago about this, but it said that they were farming catfish. What happened to the tilapia?
Okay. You all know that I'm sort of biased towards money, okay? I'm an engineer, okay? All right. Bog rays sell for catfish. Bog rays sell for 80 pesos a kilo. Catfish or tilapia sell for 35. So which one do you want to raise? Okay. The other problem is our tilapia, we put them in the summer, and there was no data in Mexico for the temperature of that lake for the year. There's data for the air, okay, all around Mexico, but nobody had any data. And when we got to December and January, the lake got down to, got sort of chilly for tilapia, right? And they were like this, you know. I'm not hungry, you know, I'm just living, I'm waiting for it to get warm, huh? So they wouldn't grow. You know? And so we got fish that aren't going to grow, and they're only 35 pesos a kilo. So we sold those guys, okay? And what the bog ray don't care what the temperature is, okay? And Jalisco likes catfish. They pay a lot for that. That's the reason. Chili fish, money.
I want to thank you very much for your inspiring talk, and I'd like to ask you, what do we do? Because I think whenever you give a talk, you've got to put your ideas into action, and you've now got so many advocates around here who'd like to support you, I'm sure. And so what should we do? What do we do? What's the do word? Thank you.
My feeling is that it's too much of a challenge for me to rebuild contacts at the federal, state, and local level that I built in 12 years, okay? And I don't have the time, okay? So, but I have written about a dozen articles, 300 words, so they're real short. They're in Spanish and English. I like to get those into the newspapers in Guadalajara. Because once I think 5 million people begin to read some of those articles, they'll be able to understand what you're hearing me say here today. All right? And because it's not possible for me to reach to the politicians the way I see it today. It's pretty hard, okay? I will continue to try, but if anybody here has a contact with anybody where they can link me up with a reporter or a journalist, I would love to turn over to them already written articles that they can think about. I think that's the only way to educate those people who will then educate the government, who can then stand up and say, you know, Conagua, we need to talk about what's happening with the Lerma River. We need to talk about what's happening with Lake Chapala. We need to talk about the future of Guadalajara.
Hello. Yes, I want to commend you on all the work you're doing.
It's my fun.
And yeah, it sounds like you're having a lot of fun.
Yeah, I don't do this for nothing, you know. My price is right. Almost nobody says no.
I have a question about the fish farm.
Yeah.
And it's sort of a question, it's a sort of a fish farm, the coin being, there's two sides of the coin regarding fish farms. Just before I ask my question, a very quick story. We have a cottage in Canada on a lake that's 7 miles long and 1 mile wide. A company several years ago put a fish farm on the lake, and within a couple of years, the lake was going downhill because the amount of effluent that comes from fish farms, from the feed, is really enormous. So my question, I guess, is, has that been figured in to the existing fish farms? And also, you mentioned something about expansion, which raised alarms in my head.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Number one, I started on this business 3 years ago with a lot of study, okay? I mean, before I dig a hole in the ground, I usually study, okay? And I looked at what was going on in the world. Terrible things are happening with aquaculture in Asia, all right? In particular, okay? And because they crowd the fish into the cages, and they crowd the cages into the lake, and then you have all this waste, which then eats up all the oxygen in it, and everything else dies, and the fish are so close that they rub each other, and the slimy surface that protects the fish gets rubbed off, and they get parasites. I looked at 7 ways of correcting the problems that we see in Asia, okay? So the design out here has done 7 things, particularly with the density, okay, to make sure that we don't have that much. I have done tests of the water before the fish were in and after the fish were out there. Tested the biological oxygen demand, the bacterial level, and things like that. And I make sure the cages are a distance above the bottom of the lake, and I make sure there's enough current. When I recommend a site, that the water should be moving about this fast under the cages, okay? About that fast. It changes the water about 200 times a day in the cage. All right? And so there were the number of fish in the lake that were here before they got killed off, okay, by the government basically, you know, the fish that we're looking at putting in here for aquaculture are going to be a small fraction of that number. All right? And so the key is to disperse the cages and have the cages not have a high density of fish. And the feed we feed them, we don't put feed in there that will go through the cage and go down to the bottom and then become an organic load to be consumed by something else. We put feed in that floats on top of the water. All right? And so the fish come up to it and then we can see them eat it. And if they don't eat it all, we know we fed them too much. Basically, you know, we take a fish like this fella here, I weigh him. Yeah. And I figure 2% of his weight, see, is what I feed him each day, on average. Yeah. That's it. Yes.
No, we have a sequence here.
You spoke about assisted living becoming an industry, that there's a big future for that here.
Great potential.
And I'm sure you're right about that it's a wonderful place to retire, as we all agree. What is your thoughts about health insurance for those people coming down here? Because I think that's the biggest detriment to people moving down here in mass.
Okay. I think one thing is, if you go to the airport, like I was yesterday to pick up my daughter, there's about 15 planes a day going to the U.S., okay? You can get out of here pretty quick if you think you have a real problem, number one. Number two, medical care here is quite good. I mean, I think most of us here for some time have a doctor we're very happy with. We might be paying $50 a visit. About 2.5 years ago, I had 3 heart attacks, and I ended up, in San Javier Hospital up in Guadalajara. If I ever have a problem again with my heart, I'm going to go to that hospital. I'll fly from the U.S. back to Mexico to go to that hospital. Because it is wonderful, okay? I had 33 people take care of me in 3 days. Right? I mean, every doctor I talked to, there were 8 that came to see me at the first time I came in, and every one of them spoke English. And the cardiologist came in and said, I'm, Dr. Jesus Espargoza. I was educated at the Houston Heart Institute. He said, you have an hour to live. Do you want me to work on you? So I said, well, let's do it,
Health insurance you addressed?
So, okay, health insurance. Yeah. Well, I'm talking like a politician and answering questions, is it? Health insurance, okay. In my case, I'm retired military, okay? So my total bill for San Javier was paid for by the Veterans Administration, all right? There are other people here on the military side. I think there's experimentation going on in the U.S. government to find out, because medical cost is less here than the U.S., and it's good care. And so I think they're going to qualify more and more places. In my case, San Javier was qualified by the Veterans Administration to pay my bill if I went to that hospital. And so when I was down from my 3rd heart attack and I was running out of air, I said, San Javier, It took me 4 hours to get there from where I was out in the jungle. I haven't answered her question.
Okay, but you said retired military. Is that true of all VA? Or is it just retired military?
I know it's good for retired military. I know that works. And there's some place around here, I think, on the caricature that says they take TRICARE and campus and things like that. And so if you're retired military, they do that. But private Mexican insurance agent. Yeah. But if I came here and I didn't have insurance, I would know how to get an airplane ticket and get out of here if I had to, okay? Or I would find the confidence that I found in doctors here and hospitals here, which I think are quite wonderful.
We're just going to have time for 2 more questions. Orange?
You are an American.
And you are a Canadian.
No.
No?
Nice try. And you're speaking to an American
Art,
audience.
hold the mic closer so everybody can
And
hear
you're
you.
speaking to an American audience. Well, I understand that we now have a new province from Canada called the province of Chapala. I've heard that. But when I made some notes and I said, I understand what you're talking about in relation to fish. And I understand that once you get down in the lake less than 30%, you're really going to have some problems.
Correct.
And I wonder, when I flush my bathroom in the morning, how pure the water is, that actually the agua negra that enters the lake. We do have those problems, but those seem to be, to me, small problems in compared to who is your counterpart any place here in Guadalajara or in Mexico that sees the big picture of Lake Chapala and this environment and the water of Guadalajara in the same context as you do. What do you do after you?
I want to give the job to you. As I said before, I have a lot of knowledge that I like to get on paper and get into the press, because, I'm not eternal either, or immoral, But as to the wastewater, this region has the best level of wastewater treatment in all of Mexico. 70% of Mexico does not treat their wastewater at all, including the 15 million or so in Mexico City. You flush the toilet and it goes down the hill. Somewhere, okay? But here we have like about 15 or 16 plants that are around the lake treating water. They're not perfect, but they're pretty good. We have 55 plants on the Larva River now. So an enormous amount of attention has been given to this region for wastewater treatment. Not perfect, but pretty good. I have no problem when you flush the toilet, okay? My problem is when industry puts chemicals in the water, all right? That's my problem.
I would like to speak.
Please stand.
I just want to hopefully speak for everybody here and who's not here. Thank you for your work. Thank you for your words. Thank you for your efforts. And secondly, where do you go dancing?
Mannix, La Bodega, Four, where else to go? And maybe I'll get some help from some other place here. But there's live music in town every night.
But there aren't live men.
We're done. Thank you so much for your yearly job.